Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I wanted to do this video about Alan Dershowitz regarding his response to the Miami Herald and how they're up for a Pulitzer in regards to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Now, obviously, if you followed my work recently, I've been all over the Epstein case the last couple of years. And now Dershowitz, who is in court, was at a hearing with his wife, we covered that as well, continues to deny that he had anything to do with the allegations, and we're going to call them allegations. He's said this for years. He has not changed his tune on this. However, you know, the Miami Herald has done significant work. So what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to show you and read to you the entire open letter published in the Jewish Voice by Dershowitz, and then I'm also going to show you guys that, you know, Dershowitz has said this for at least 4 years. We're going to show you some excerpts of this interview here, but remember, he's gunning for the Miami Herald piece here, and that's not just one piece. They've done just an extensive amount of work over a decade, and they've really come out swinging this year, and I think that is super important because, hey, let's be honest. The mainstream media doesn't want to dig deep into this. You know, they don't want to ask former presidents. They don't want to ask current presidents about this. You know, we played the clip where Acosta finally gets asked about this in an open forum with Catherine Clark, where she's grilling him, and did that video. But those moments are few and far between. So I also want to say out of the gates, I do not trust Alan Dershowitz, but we let everybody be heard. That's how things work here. We look at both sides of the story. But I'm also going to show you, you know, Dershowitz is a world-class lawyer. And there's a synonym out there for lawyer. It sounds a lot like lawyer. It starts with an L. I wonder what it could be, liar. So let's just get into it. So here we go. Among leading candidates for a Pulitzer Prize in investigative journalism is the Miami Herald and its reporter Julie K. Brown for its series on the Jeffrey Epstein case. The series, however, was not based on rigorous or objective investigation, but rather on one-sided and largely false tips from self-interested lawyers who used the series to their financial advantage. Brown refused to investigate and or publish highly credible information that undercut the simplistic and largely false narrative fed by her biased sources. I know because I have been providing her with much of the documents and information she chose to bury rather than report. Had she reported on this contradictory material, she would have endangered the Pulitzer Prize she had been aiming for. The Pulitzer Committee should not reward such biased and result-oriented reporting by giving her the prize. Now, I also want to make it clear, guys, that, you know, as far back as 2015, you see these headlines. I don't want to read that headline for you, but obviously this is in regards to the Epstein case, okay? Think about that for a second. So ask yourself, really, should we be listening to Alan Dershowitz? Is Alan Dershowitz a reliable source of information? Or is he a very smart man who knows how to go with lawyer speak? You know, you just go through that first paragraph, and it is extremely intelligently written and extremely litigious. Here is the truthful narrative. I love how it's the truthful narrative. Okay. Brown refused to report. Every fact can be documented. And again, you know, I want to point out, he's going to talk about Giufrre for a minute and her charges against him. Now, and at least one occasion, it does appear to be proved in a courtroom that she alleged him to be somewhere where he physically could not have been. But I believe she's made 6 allegations against him. In a certain time frame, it's not like you're going to get everything right. I know that I would be having trouble naming dates from 6 months ago, let alone 6 years ago. Okay? So let's continue. At the center of Brown's story is a woman in her mid-30s named Virginia Roberts Giufrre. who has a long and documented history of lying about sexual and other encounters with famous people, including presidents, prime ministers, princes, and other politicians and celebrities. Now, we know that Epstein's Black Book was notorious with all those things. But now we've basically singled out one person and their allegations when there were dozens of women here. But again, he's in court over this woman, so we're reading what he has to say. She sold a story for $160,000 to a British scandal sheet in which she described in great detail meeting Vice President Al Gore, his then-wife Tipper, and President Bill Clinton on Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island. The only problem is that the Secret Service and other records conclusively proved that none of them was ever on that island and that the Gores didn't even know Epstein. Again, I am not sure. I am quite positive that she did sell material to certain publications, if you will. Some people would call them rags, tabloids, whatever, in the UK. But look, the UK, the Mirror, those type of tabloid publications, the Daily Mail, if you will, they were some of the only ones reporting on any of this scandal that is really just coming to light now. Yet, she subsequently committed perjury by swearing to these falsehoods. I'm not sure she's been charged with perjury, by the way. Among the men she accused of having sex with her when she was underage were a former Senate Majority Leader, a former United Nations Ambassador, a former Israeli Prime Minister, and a head of state. She also accused Leslie Wexner, a billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret, of having underage sex with her on multiple occasions and making her wear Victoria's Secret-type lingerie. Yet, her own employment records prove that she was well above the age of consent when she claims these liaisons occurred, in the unlikely event they ever occurred at all. So again, now he's like, well, maybe they did occur, but she was certainly of age, at least in the instance of the Victoria's Secret billionaire. And that's another thing that we have to realize about this Epstein saga. Although many of these girls were teenage girls when they first started working for Epstein, they worked well into their 20s, okay? So yes, you do have the underage aspect of this, but they were still profitable to him. And I know there's a lot of speculation of whether this was a blackmail operation, and obviously Maxwell's involvement further makes that speculation, have a little bit more validity. But until we know that, this could have been just for profit or for both. It doesn't just mean it's one without the other. People are greedy out there. All right. There is one set of allegations that I know for certain was completely made up. She accused me of having sex with her on 6 occasions in different places. Although I have never even met her, I was fortunate enough to travel cell phone and Amex records that conclusively prove I could not have been on Epstein's Caribbean island, New Mexico ranch, Palm Beach mansion, or private airplane during the relevant time period. A careful review of these records led Giuffre's own lawyer to conclude in a lawfully recorded conversation that it would have been impossible for me to have been where she falsely claimed to have had sex with me, and that his client's accusations against me were wrong, simply wrong. Now, is this taped? Very, very possibly. I have not seen this yet. It may be in a courtroom. It may have been the last deposition. Again, I'm not 100% sure. We're reading Dershowitz's own open letter. A thorough review of these records and other evidence also led the former head of the FBI to conclude that the allegations against me were disproved and false. Even Giuffre's best friend said that Giuffre told her she had never accused me until she was pressured by her lawyers to do so. They are also sealed emails and book manuscript written by Giuffre that conclusively prove I was falsely framed. Hopefully, they will soon be unsealed. Now, he has been pretty vocal saying he wants everything to be unsealed in the court records. We've had 2 separate parties now, anonymous parties, come in and say that they want the records at least somewhat redacted. One seems to be a reasonable one, seems to be a victim, and they only want like their social security number or their name to be redacted. However, the John Doe, the second person, we've covered that, really no idea who that person is. So how did Pulitzer candidate Brown deal with the evidence discrediting her primary source? She simply omitted any mention of it and presented Giufrre as an entirely credible witness with no doubts about her truthfulness. In an email to her editor, which she copied me deliberately or inadvertently, she said that I had presented no evidence that proved my innocence. Well, that's interesting. She discounted the finding of the former federal judge and FBI director Louis Freeh with the following putdown. Freeh is a former attorney general whose work has been questioned. Certainly has. I am no fan of Louis Freeh. I can promise you that. No, Freeh's investigations would have been relied on by universities, corporations, and other institutions throughout the world. Brown didn't even bother to call Freeh. Well, again, I can't validate that, but I can tell you that he is absolutely crooked. Brown deliberately and mendaciously misled her readers and the Pulitzer Committee by choosing to omit from her narrative every single document, sworn testimony, and other proof that would raise questions about the credibility of her primary source. She admitted to me in a consensually recorded conversation that there is absolutely no evidence supporting Giuffre's accusation against me, but she did not publish that important fact, nor did she publish the fact that Giuffre refused to accuse me on the record. This is not journalism. It is certainly not prize-worthy journalism. It is advocacy. And it is advocacy that would get a lawyer disciplined or willfully withholding exculpatory evidence. It is also advocacy that hurts the Me Too movement. Oh, we're going to invoke that, are we, Dershowitz? That's what we're going to invoke? He's crafty, folks. He's a crafty guy. By encouraging false reports that damage the credibility of an important movement. So shame on Brown, shame on the Miami Herald, and shame on the Pulitzer Committee if it fails to investigate Brown's reporting and encourages such fake news and shoddy journalism by rewarding it. Now, again, remember, these were the headlines here. Now, let me let you in on a little secret. Dershowitz, when he's coming to Trump's aid just the other day, invoked the 9/11 Commission report. And he said, you know, when they talked about 9/11, they said no charges. Oh, it was impeccable. Now, Dershowitz got called out on 9/11, and basically, you know, some 9/11 truth people asked him a question, and he went with the official narrative. And then this is back in 2009, and he brings up the Earth being round. This is long before flat Earth took off. But again, associating anybody that was questioning 9/11 with flat Earth type conspiracies. Let's play this.
On the 9/11 Commission are my students and my friends, are people who I trust completely.
Oh yeah, trust them.
The 9/11 Commission came to the right conclusion based on all the evidence. Clearly, their evidence is overwhelming that the events of 9/11 were planned by Osama bin Laden and his mullahs, and the Earth is round.
So there it is, Osama bin Laden, and the Earth is round. Now, in case you guys didn't know, it's very, very hard to find these days, but Dershowitz, you actually have to type this quote in to find it. It's so buried. Christopher Ketchum used to be a reporter for Counterpunch. I'm not sure what he's up to these days. But this is what he reported. The reputable Israeli daily Herald reported that last week of October 2001, some 6 weeks after the men had been detained, who is she referring to? Or I'm sorry, who is he referring to? He's referring to the Israelis that were caught filming the attacks and then celebrating them, the 9/11 attacks. Okay? Now, a large network prior to 9/11, you got to watch my film, Fabled Enemies, I cover it, was beginning to be round up before the attacks. And then other Israelis were actually detained post 9/11. People have even speculated 150, 200, maybe a little bit more of a very large network. Well, guess who helped lobby for them to go back to Israel? Alan Dershowitz. Here it is right here. The reputable Israeli daily Herald reported that the last week of October 2001, some 6 weeks after the men had been detained, Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage and two identified prominent New York congressmen were lobbying heavily for their release, according to a source at ABC News close to the 2020 report. High-profile criminal lawyer Alan Dershowitz also stepped in as a negotiator on behalf of the men to soothe out differences with the U.S. government. So you can type in to find that dancing Israelis detained on 9/11, then Dershowitz's name. Very tough to find. But that's the kind of guy Alan Dershowitz is. Tell you the 9/11 report is correct. Tell you Osama bin Laden carried it out. And then he'll negotiate for the Israelis' release that, again, if you watch my film, had a classified role in 9/11. According to FBI whistleblowers in the video, he lobbied to get him back. He's probably a pretty honest gentleman. So after 9/11, if you want to check him out debating civil liberties and basically arguing for more police state measures and more state powers and that we don't have inherent rights as human beings, there are no God-given rights. That's literally his opener. You can also watch that. But I wanted to bring it all the way back to him sitting down and looking this woman with his wife next to him, I believe, deadpan and denying all the allegations against him. And remember, this guy is still Epstein's lawyer. So I gotta give him this. I don't trust him. He has been consistent. This is a 2015 interview. It's widely available out there, guys. You can check it out yourselves. I don't want to go over the whole thing. I think I'm going to close this one out. I want to remind you guys, I'm pumping out the videos. Please, if you are not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Ring that bell for the notifications. Share this stuff on social media. Make sure to check out my daily work over at We Are Change and Pulse Change. And guys, get out there and really, you got to do this research too, man. I can't be the only one. If you got any tips, please hit me up in the DMs. Anything Epstein, Nexium. I'm going to be doing a video on Raniere maybe later tonight, tomorrow, not sure. Dark Overlord, 9/11, so much more. Anything police state, totally interested in. And remember, when we hit 15K subs, we're going to do an AMA-style broadcast where you guys, the viewers, can tell me what you want me to cover more. So, guys, thank you again so much. I will be back around shortly.